All right. Well, hey everyone, welcome to our brand new fancy office hours. I do have one thing to say. I said these were going to be valuable, so I didn't have to do all these meetings everywhere. And I got a thing at like midnight yesterday, and SPDX was like, "Can we get some help with diversity?" I was like, "You can come to our office hours that we have tomorrow."
Nice.
So
Perfect.
there should be someone on here, although I just saw them do an email ping pong to 3 different peoples of their team, so it might not be.
Yeah, and I didn't
does-
do too much marketing on this either, so
Yeah. But I think this is good. I mean, at least now I could literally just respond to that and not have to give them a bunch of advice. I just told them to come to here. So they'll be able to know they've got access to this. So they should be on the next one.
nice.
Yeah. So, but we'll give it, I say we give it like 10, 15 minutes. There's a couple of things to cover anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
If not, we take it for something else, right? We're already here.
yeah. All right. Well,
Like,
yeah,
open
I'm
us
trying to
ourselves
see.
here.
Well, how's everyone else doing? Anything else you want to go over?
I don't know.
Where are
It's,
we with the community list?
do you have enough interns have signed up? You said like hundreds of folks
103.
applied.
So it was when I checked Monday, it was 121 total
Oh, wow.
applications. I haven't checked recently.
Hmm.
But we're gonna be closing it on the Alpha Omega mentorship. We're gonna be closing it on the 25th,
Okay.
which is next Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are good opportunities. Hey, Sun, welcome. No one from SPDX is here, so glad to see you're here. Sun always has trouble getting their microphone going, so expect it to be another 2 to 3 minutes. I believe, so Yesenia, I haven't contacted you just yet. I'm also wearing Slim AI socks right now. They're great socks. But
Flag.
I know, right? But Christine, I sent you and Jay an email earlier today, my time, just asking, I'm trying to get about half a dozen, like just audio recordings that I will then translate on Otter so they can be read as well. That just talks about, like, it literally starts with not what do you do now, but what's the first thing you remember doing in open source? What is the thing that you're most excited about in open source? And then you're allowed to say what your job title is, because otherwise an average citizen won't care. So
Gotcha.
yeah. And so those would all be sort of digital links, digital content that people can dive into. So yeah, if you're up for doing it, I think it'd be so cool.
All right.
I think that's cool.
No problem.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good start because usually when I start with like what I do and what I'm working on, everyone's like, "What did you say to me?" And I'm like, "It's good words, I promise."
Yeah. But oh, San, can you speak now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can. Hey,
Oh gosh.
how are you doing?
So I've been in the Pacific Northwest for the past 2 months. Right now I'm in Reading at my old where my parents live now. I won't go into too many details about my tumultuous personal life, but I am slowly but surely moving out of Texas. So
Okay.
things have kind of been up in the air for the past 2 months, but I'm trying to get back into it finally.
All right, cool.
Of
Well,
course,
welcome
you've been doing anything and everything the past couple months too, haven't you, Sal?
Well, I mean, I can do less because you're not doing things for me on the open source, but it sounds like okay, but Sen, I did have one thing. So
Yep.
this zine thing is going down, and I am going to have a page that covers SPDX and Cyclone DX, and then
Oh,
I
gosh.
really want,
Okay.
I know, but it's only just links to them.
Okay. All right.
I want
God.
from you, I need in the printed zine about a half a page of your perspective on all of this from right?
Okay, it's gonna be like old man yells at the cloud.
Well, yeah, old man yells at the cloud because they're asking for SBOMs for everything everywhere, and not everything's cloud or can be templated that way, right? AI has the same problem.
Oh God, I didn't mean it like that, but yeah, wow, I do mean it like that, don't I? Damn.
Yeah. I think that'd be cool.
Pretty
I'll shoot
much.
you another note on that. But hey, Sen, do you have any
Yeah.
questions for possibly Yesenia on a mentorship opportunity at the Linux Foundation, or have you not read my messages this week?
I have. Oh my goodness, I'm here, Sal. So clearly, I've read some of them.
He just saw a link and was like, all right, click.
Hey, man, I don't know what you want. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Question.
okay. To be fair,
Look,
Dennis-
hey, to be honest, I was very surprised. I was very surprised that Kate Stewart reached out to me because I haven't been involved with stuff in about 2 months. And all of a sudden I get this email out of the blue. It's like, okay, I'm going to forward this to Sal and Aaron because I don't know what else I'm supposed to do.
yeah. Yeah. Well, they weren't able to make it. There was I think there were 2 or 3 people contacted after that, but I want to make sure to follow up with them, tell them that there's another one that they need to show up to these spaces because it's not about bringing everyone to SPDX, but SPDX going out and doing their jobs.
Well,
Okay.
I guess granted, it's who's that other fellow who is CC John or something at the Linux Foundation? John
Yeah.
Murdoch. Yeah. So I guess I need to dig into his credentials to see what his whole involvement in all this stuff is.
Well, he's coordinating some of the like inter-project coordination. Service.
Yeah, I haven't. It's been a while since I've looked at. the Linux Foundation hierarchy. Actually, I don't think I've ever looked at the Linux Foundation hierarchy, so
Yeah.
not quite sure how all that stuff works. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I briefly skimmed over that thing that you sent me. That's this. What's that thing going on right now? It's Yesenia and Jonathan, Lycha,
Mm-hmm.
something
Yeah.
something
Lycha,
security,
yeah.
something cloud, something.
Actually, Sen, you know that I need this because I've said it wrong so many times. Yesenia,
Yeah.
can you just tell me how to say that last name one more time?
It's Lycha.
Light
Light
shoe.
shoe?
Lycha.
So like light bulb and then shoe.
Light
Yeah.
shoe. Light
Light
shoe.
shoe.
Light shoe.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Jonathan Light shoe. Yes.
whatever you do, don't call him John. He doesn't like that.
Jonathan?
Always Jonathan. Yeah, no, I did bowling with him once, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that one day.
don't I? And then I picked up one of those. Oh God, back when Sonotype had those little. This was a couple of OSSs ago, but they had those little like camera slidey cover things. And I took one of them and I went up to Jonathan and I was like, "This is your fault." He's like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Yes, it is." He's like, "But it is a good idea." I'm like,
Well, it looks like we've got one more person in here. So do we all want to do just a little set of introductions? Because that's a good way to get started.
Yeah. I'll start. Just welcome everyone. This is our first education DEI office hours, and today we're kind of just focusing on the Alpha Omega mentorship program, hoping to kind of give that a little bit more visibility. Even though I may have dropped the ball on the marketing on this a bit, but we had it for 4 hours, so we had to drill down to an hour. I didn't know how that was going to work. But just to give a little brief introduction to myself and then the project, and then we'll go around the room. So I'm on the OpenSSF Alpha Omega project, focusing primarily on the Omega side, which is our tool chain. We have 4 components: our analyzer, our triage portal. Under the analyzer, we also have a feature called the assertion framework. And then we have our modern Omega client, which essentially does the automated pull request. So those 4 pieces are just our 4 components that we're currently looking at to deploy into or engineer into a full-fledged flow where we analyze an open source package using 20 plus different security tools, come up with one report, because we all know that these security tools love their own reports. Come out with one Sarah file report that's going to be uploaded one day automatically into the one day live triage portal that we're so hard working on. And then from there are our security researchers, this is where Jonathan Lightshoe kind of kicks in, will be taking the findings that are added to the triage portal, performing their vulnerability disclosure lifecycle. In that, once they become aware of fixes that they want to run into campaigns, they'll be one day the Mandarin client will be living into the triage portal, and those campaigns can be ran via an action from the portal based on the status of a specific finding. We do have a mentorship for the summer of 2023. That's the year we're in, right? Yeah, 2023. Always takes me a step back. I'm like, wait. It's a 12-week program paid into installments because that's how they have it set up. But additional funding was added so that folks could join us at B-Sides and DEFCON this year. So hotels, flights, all the luxuries have been added, but that will be part of the mentees pay. Mentees pay is paid out in 2 installments, 6 weeks in, 6 weeks out. And we're hiring a total of 4 remote, I should add that too, remote US eligible individuals. We will be looking at expanding it to outside, but to get this program out quickly within the summer program to get talent, we just had to limit. 2 of them will be working with me on improving the engineering of the Omega tool chains. So getting more of those features in play, getting it live in the cloud. I'm working on the full project plan within the next couple weeks. And then 2 will be working with Jonathan Lightshoe on the actual vulnerability disclosure workflow process. We're closing out the applications on the 25th, but we are going to be reviewing it on the 24th. So we are asking folks to submit by Sunday, the 23rd. That way we can have our time Monday to review it and then reach out, and then anybody else will be reviewing on Wednesday. We're hoping to provide notices of moving forward by mid-May so that folks can start in June 1st. That way it just kind of coincides, and then at the end of your mentorship, you're out in Vegas with us. If you use the money towards that, we're not meant, as much as we want to mandate you to go fly with us and party with us in Vegas, we can't force you to. And that's a little bit about me, the project, and the mentorship.
Super cool. I'll jump in real quick. Sal Kemick. I am all around the Linux Foundation, but I'm not paid by it, which means I just get to have fun and do projects I care about by design. And so right now I'm focusing a lot on sort of education and DE&I efforts because they're one and the same. Almost the majority of my talent comes from non-traditional backgrounds, and a lot of those come from non-traditional spaces for tech. I specifically found today a brand new Native American open source training program, which they just started out. So I'll be adding that into our DE&I list as well. But yeah, that's me. For the next at least 2 to 3 months, I'm at a company without a marketing team, so I'm just doing whatever I want.
Are we doing a round of introductions? Is that what it is?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. So my name is Christine Abernathy, and I am currently at F5. And I've been doing a lot of work with the OpenSSF for the last year. And one of the things I'm most passionate about is DE&I. So kind of happy to support in any way, shape or form. And I'm really excited about any opportunities there are to actually get people not just into open source, but into open source and security, which is a super, super important. So yeah, that's me.
Oops, you're muted still.
Hello, can you guys hear me? The audio is probably really bad, so apologies. My name is Andres Orbi. I am currently studying CS. I'm a senior at NJIT, and yeah, looking to improve my awareness about like open source security and just security when it comes to open source stuff. So yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, well, I guess the bottle spun and pointed at me then. My name is Sen Hastings. I'm a general Linux enthusiast with kind of a focus more towards embedded Linux. Occasionally people pay me to write software. Sal found me lying in a gutter, sometime middle of last year. And now wherever they go, I must follow. So here I am.
That gutter was Open Source Summit, by the way. So
What?
What?
Hey,
Yeah.
The new code word for it.
look, I was living in Austin. This was Open Source Summit North America of 2022, and I was living in Austin at the time, so it was not difficult for me to attend.
Yeah.
And
I
then I
said,
went
"Hey."
to Open Source Summit EU in Dublin, which was a lot more difficult for me to attend.
But you made it.
I did, and then I also made it to the State of OpenCon, which again was also Sal's fault. So
Yeah, and you gave an incredible talk. So
Oh,
basically,
thank you.
and sorry, I have to know that this is so casual between Sen and I because Sen is my part-time whenever I need a virtual assistant. So because like I have somebody that can actually like understand what these emails mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is basically Sen and I catch up this way almost every Friday. So we're not going to take over this.
Yeah,
call.
well, whenever Sal is available, which is, you have to wait for the correct planetary alignment and stir the tea leaves and stuff like that. But
I have my best friend says she has to wait. I call it Mercury Gatorade. So she's like, you usually have to wait for the Gatorade to come around to find you. And I'm like, yeah.
So I apologize for effectively destroying any semblance of professionalism that Sal was trying to bring to this meeting. But
These
That's
people,
what open source is.
but
Just
I
having
mean, I'm
conversations
sure
with our
given
friends.
different circumstances, Sal would pay me the exact same courtesy. So here we are.
yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, those some good introductions, gotta say. Yeah, I think on the mentorship program, I think it's interesting. The one thing I do want to clarify, because I clarified it before, was that it is open to those of non-traditional backgrounds. So it's quote unquote student, but it's anyone that's in that position. And I think that's really valuable because increasingly I am hiring those over four-year students. Yeah.
Are you seeing a pattern of the non-traditional folks that you kind of meet, or is it just so much all over the place that can't really categorize?
Yeah, there's not so many really clear pathways, but I think the real difference is the incredible hiring deficit in both cybersecurity and SRE. So it's a place where people can go and get upskilled. Like I've seen a lot of people do really good. And if you are still in a school position right now, go and do your summer internships and do them in DevOps with a focus on SRE or DevOps with a focus in cybersecurity and get that on your resume right now. I had to fight because I've got a mentee who is femme presenting and who I trained in DevOps for 2 years, who got their first internship at a company 2 months ago, and they put them in UX UI. They didn't even read their resume. They just basically said femme presenting, here's UX UI. They didn't even ask them what they were interested in. And we fixed that. And now they have a full-time job in SRE after 3 months of demonstrating that they have the skill set for SRE, right? Because it really does take about 3 to 6 months in those fields to be valuable enough to be in an entry hiring location. Because we need 200,000 in the UK right now. And that's less than what the US needs.
What are some tactics? What are some tactics that you can advise for somebody who just kind of like that drops in, is brand new to the company, is probably a little nervous about saying, I should be doing this? What is some advice? How did you fix it, so to speak?
Well, I think it's interesting because I've been on both sides of that. When I hire someone or I'm working with someone, I always make them rewrite their job description for what they want to be doing in 1 year. And then we compare the difference with training, right? But really, if you're just jumping into a space, it's not even self-advocacy. It's about not wasting your time, right? So go in and be sensitive to what it is that you do not enjoy. Like I will tell you, I was already in like DevOps backend, and I got a 3-month bootcamp scholarship to go study like React front end. And I left because I hated it. I hated that kind of development. I thought it was stupid and awful. And I still do, and I respect people that do it because it's a hard job, and I know that now. But really, it's about advocating and knowing that like those 3 months would have been better spent not at a boot camp, but back in my job. One, I enjoyed my job, but two, it's my skill set. It's where I love to be. It's the kind of, right. So it's testing those out and being able to, take the things that are what we would call the hard disciplines and take a risk on it, because you're probably going to be happier in 5 years in that career than you are doing front end.
Yeah, that happened to me in my career. Was when I started, I got an internship as a tester. And then it happened to be like right next to the security room, and I've always wanted to be security. So when I would talk to my advisor for the internship, they were like, well, if you can perform well in your testing role, we'll think of putting you in security. And I'm like, I hate what I'm doing. Like, I'm not going to perform well. I'm going to tell you straight out, I'm not going to perform well. And then I had to go out of my way of watching the security folks go to the restroom because it was on the path and then just making friends. And then I ended up having an internship there, less than my internship. I already had like secured the next, because I was like, no, because if I go down the path you're putting me, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. And I mean, I've absolutely seen this. I think that people over-direct non-traditionally represented people. They over-direct them into careers that are typically don't pay as well, but often are much more like customer service facing. And I think that's just clearly implicit bias. And I think that's awful. Right, because that doesn't mean that I'm going to get the best developer. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get the happiest developers. And I can't put any single face on what the best cybersecurity engineer looks like, because I've got 3 or 4 in mind right now, and they all have very different backgrounds. They just care a lot about what they do. So, yeah.
Andres, do you have any questions? Sorry.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, what are kind of the best tactics that you guys have seen to ramp up or be effective in like an SRE / like DevOps or security role? Or like any like tools or like skills to pick up? Just any knowledge would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that real quick. So SRE, so everything is sort of under the larger domain of DevOps, right? But DevOps is just basically, it's literally called like what happens when developers do what managers used to do themselves. So it's all around automation practices. SRE is site reliability engineering. So I'm asking myself the question, can I model the system statistically so that I know where it's most likely to break? There's chaos engineering and site reliability engineering, all in that. And really the difference is DevOps is your stable job that you're going to make a stable normal wage at. You can get the DevOps as your first dip in and get exactly what they were just saying, sort of a dip in experience to what are in the PagerDuty domain. So that's cybersecurity and SRE. When things go wrong, there's a very potential that someone is going to call you on a phone and you have to fix it immediately and cry because it's 2 a.m. But those jobs off the bat can be $200,000, $300,000 in the US market because they require you to have a specialized skill. So you have to go in and understand DevOps, and then you want to sort of shadow on an SRE or cybersecurity team. And then your third experience, what's different about this is the pathway where you're not really project-based. You have to be embedded onto a team, and you have to demonstrate your ability to work on a team when there are incidents. So studying incident response, learning and understand threat models. If you really, really are interested in that, there's a threat modeling working group through Linux Foundation, and there's a bunch of people that work in there and work tandem with open source projects. Like I went in and I did a threat model with the maintainers behind Argo CD because I care a lot about Argo CD, and they promised me one of their plushies, and they saved it for me at this last KubeCon, so I'm getting it in the mail. Yeah, so I went in and I had never done a full threat model for this particular, like for an open source system, which is a lot more interesting integrations than others. And so doing that built out my skill set. It gives a public record of that skill set. I worked with a pretty central open source project. So it's things like that, learning to engage in cybersecurity in open source projects does get you a good track record. And there's things like bug bashes, all of those. Any of those things are going to be, it proves you to be incredibly valuable, because when I see somebody that has even 3 or 4 really, really nice projects, Sometimes that doesn't mean they're a great developer. It means they're a horrible team player. And that's not what I want to see on a resume. So you got to be careful about what you're actually showing. And if you can show that you've had that progression from demonstrating a skill set, bridging that to a new skill set, and then taking that and making it something new, that's what it is. If you take the same path in academia, it's exactly the same. So in your postdoc, in your like graduate, you demonstrate something new. Your postdoc, you extend with a Venn diagram between something new and something else. And if you move on in your career, you have this little bubble of really specialized capacity, right? That's your specialization matrix. And that logic is actually really strategic in the way that people write up grants and stuff. So you want to keep that in mind when you're making your proposals for, right, moving into a new place in your workplace, or for promotions, or finding an external promotion, which is called getting a new and better job. It's my favorite kind.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then to kind of piggyback, it's something I like to talk about. It's called your digital portfolio, right? It's representing yourself as an individual. Let's say I use the cloud engineer example, right? If you want to come and you're looking for cloud engineers, your digital portfolio should reflect what a cloud engineer should be doing, or at least studying. So if you're an academic, go ahead and just share on LinkedIn, GitHub, your own personal website, just things that you've worked on, lessons learned. What did I do well? What could I have done better next time? Where my, my strengths and my weaknesses on this project? And then share it out with your community. Like, I'm on LinkedIn and I see folks are like, oh, I just did this really cool thing and it's a hello world, but it's really simple. And I was like, all right, cool. You're one step closer. It takes 20 hours to learn new skills. So finding your platform to display your knowledge and your learning experience becomes what your digital portfolio is. And then, as you're searching for these jobs, and they say not to do it, but they research you, right? Or if it's on your resume, if you provide your LinkedIn or your GitHub and stuff like that, people are going to go there because you provided these resources. So you're kind of demonstrating yourself as, for this example, cloud engineer. So I go on your LinkedIn page, it should reflect what a cloud engineer looks like, and not from a personality perspective, but from a skill set. Your volunteer work, as she had mentioned, working as a team. There's several DEI communities, there's several tech communities out there. Just start joining them, go to meetups. Like in my area, there's multiple meetups. Everyone's different. I live in a bigger city, so I have that availability. And then the other thing is, looking at, if you want more of the nitty gritty of what do I study, like tech, like do I do Python or do I do JavaScript? Go on LinkedIn and look for these jobs. So once again, the cloud engineer, look at these different cloud engineer job descriptions, see the ones that interest you. And I always ask my mentees to make two lists: the skills I have and the skills I don't. The skills I don't become your study path. That's where you now go and you're like, okay, now I need to learn a cloud provider. Now I need to learn, what Get is and what CI/CD means. Oh, I've done this. This is cool. I played with Python Django. So I'm going to add this to my resume or my LinkedIn. Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just like writing all this down.
It's recorded too, so you can always go back.
Now, an interesting question, just to piggyback on what you said, Yesenia. So there's like sometimes when you're sort of very new, you might not even know what does a cloud engineer do. And like, okay, do you just pick one, or what's been your experience? I know everyone probably has a completely different journey, but I was always interested in, like, sometimes you don't know what you know, because I've seen, like, sometimes I will tell people what I do and I give it a title and they're like, oh, that's what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know it had a name.
Yeah. And corporations are interesting because, like, what one title might be at one corporation does a completely different role at that same title in another corporation. And I'm a curious person. So in cybersecurity, I've been all over the place. So I usually go for the job description. Like, does it sound exciting? If I don't know what the words are, then just do like a Google search, or, reach out to the recruiter. I think that's something that's, most people just submit an application, that's it. But you can easily nowadays find out who the recruiter is, and be like, hey, I just want to learn, 15 minutes of your time. Just tell me what this position or what they're looking for this position to do. I always tell folks, I'm like, you got to put your salesman hat on or your salesperson hat on and and figure it out. It's a little uncomfortable, but we wouldn't be making moves to where we want, to Saul's point earlier, you wouldn't be advocating for yourself unless you advocate for yourself, or getting the position unless you advocate for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's also really important to write strongly but honestly represent yourself. So I do ask when I'm working with people that are earlier in their careers, I have to state to them explicitly, like, you should write out every single type of technology you've used. If you've done SQL queries, SQL is on your resume. That may not be what you want to do with your life, but you put every single thing that you've used. However, I don't want to see just a list. I want to see what you used in combination, just literally : this, and this. And I want above that the problem I was trying to solve. You have to narrativize your technical experiences. So no matter what job you're in, you're a project manager of one. And if you can demonstrate that you're a great project manager of yourself and or of teams, then you're super hireable because you add an extra value that nobody else has. Developers that cannot be self-stimulated are very, very hard to keep going on a team. So yeah, that really, really shows it. And I also think that, like, showing up for your failures, it's a question that I ask whenever I'm hiring. I ask someone at the end of their session, I prepare them for it too. So I'm going to ask you this: what has been your favorite failure of your career? And the information that I get out of that is two. One, maybe like how bad they've actually screwed up one time, how honest they are. And number three, most importantly, how much responsibility do they take? Do they then say that this was a team issue or a leadership issue? Or do they say, hey, I messed up and this is something that I learned from? Technology spaces are so much more human than you would expect, because all of us basically have the same skill set across these different domains, right? Cloud engineer is actually about 3 or 4 different roles if you slice them up. But really, it's about being able to communicate well and being able to show that, like, growth into a domain of specialty. And anywhere where you're stuck at a point of growth, right? If you're stuck not being able to make that Venn diagram or that next jump, that's what you write as the reason why you're looking for that experience, right? So hopefully, who knows?
I really like that explanation about kind of like owning your failures, because whenever I interviewed, I also like to ask a similar question, and it always a red flag if somebody says no, they have never they've never failed. Or it's like a growth opportunity, but also just being strategic, even if it's just like, I'm gonna take this job because I wanna. You can have like a very long-term goal. It doesn't mean that but let's say you want to be a CEO. I once met somebody who said they wanted to be a CEO. So every job they took from the beginning was to learn whichever one skill they needed for that CEO position. So if it was, for example, just learning how to deal with people, maybe their first job was being kind of like a team lead. The next one is kind of learning strategy. Maybe they learned something working with the sales team, but they were really young, but they were already thinking in a very strategic way of where they wanted their career to go. And every job opportunity they took was in that direction.
Yeah, because you'll get burnout the second you're going in the wrong direction. It happens to all of us more than once in our careers, but the people that stay in this game for 10 years are the ones that can beat burnout because they stick with what they're passionate about. It sounds flimsy, but it's genuinely true. It's genuinely true. There's a huge difference between those engineers, especially in open source, because in open source, it's people who happen to get paid for the things that they're already passionate about. In the most part, there are more people coming in for it as a business measure, but a lot of us were in it because it wasn't business before. And so it's really cool working in what is basically a creative domain with people who I think would consider themselves creative, but then actually fixing problems, unlike perhaps an art piece, except for this zine. The zine will do both. I'm obsessed with it for the next 2 weeks. So oh, my last note there, as you're like looking into career options, and also if you can send me, maybe like find me on LinkedIn, because there's this big pathway, like learning pathway. Christine, do you remember where that big pathway is? Someone sent us this learning pathway that like goes through a bunch of, it's not cybersecurity specific, but it came up about 2-3 weeks ago. If I can find it, I will send that to you because it's a really good thing to just walk through for skill sets in tech. I can't remember what it was. Of course, if you want access to any of that information, get on the Linux Foundation Slack or the OpenSSF Slack under the DE&I, and that's where we have our conversations.
Is this something like that? I remember seeing that a couple of weeks back where it was kind of like a roadmap of security certifications.
Yeah, this is one of them. Yeah, this is the security certs. Yep. God, imagine if someone just went and got 173 certs and 0 life experience. But yeah, so it's like it's not quite this because it's just the certs. It's actually like a learning pathway. So if I can find that for you, I will. I don't remember what it's called right now. Oh, yes. Well, sorry, my last note is like for cybersecurity SRE, they pay well, they're lots of fun, but you can only do it if you have a specific type of personality. I've seen people have panic attacks in that space. It's pager duty. So like when I started SRE, I had a manager pull me aside and he's like, you know what, you're going to have to now develop a pager duty personality. And I was like, what does that mean? He was like, I identify, and I now identify, but this manager was like, I identify as the dude from that one like 1990s movie who's just like always zened out. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many servers are on fire. I am the dude. I am the dude. So it is like you have to find a personality fit for the tech more than you have to find a tech fit for yourself. I found that genuinely be true.
Yeah, I did security operations for 3 years, and it's so many canceled plans where you just have to be like, I gotta work. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then it's like at 2-3 in the morning too. So it's never fun hours or holidays. But it's a good learning experience. But like you said, it has to be a particular personality. And to be able to work with different personalities. Sometimes you gotta make those tough calls at 2 in the morning to call somebody, wake them up and be like, hey, hope you slept well, because you're not going to sleep too much for the next few hours or day.
Yeah. But what I put in right there are it's specifically for cybersecurity, but these are some of the best. I like literally, I'd recommend if you think you're interested in cybersecurity, show up once to every single one of these meetings. It's gonna be about 1 day's worth of hours for about 15 years worth of experience. You can ask anyone on those calls any questions you have. That's what I would do. That is in part what I did and why I have so many contacts in cybersecurity and Linux.
I can attest to that, having not known much about security, just like listening. And for the first few months, I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. But over time, you kind of know the words, and it starts to all come into focus. I+1. Yeah.
You catch up and stuff.
Yeah. Plus, it's nice to get new faces in there because more than once I've had like a new face come on and someone has to like clarify an acronym for them. And it turns out half of the people who've been there for 6 months didn't know what the acronym was. So like, really, we got it's worth asking dumb questions because maybe we need more of that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I recommend for folks entering is like join one of the working groups. I'm like, look at this page, look at all the cool things we're working on, and just join one of them that makes you excited. You're gonna meet like industry, experts and just folks that are just trying to solve this problem. And I know Andre has been on the vulnerability disclosure working groups with us, and then the Alpha Omega as well. So thank you. Did you have any more questions, or anybody else had questions?
I'm just adding in resources. But absolutely do follow up on or off this call if you have any other questions. I'm always curious, especially getting people into these harder domains. And everyone on this call wants cybersecurity, but I secretly also still need more SREs. So
It helps with cybersecurity.
I was wondering, is the call to action probably after this, because maybe some folks might watch the recording later. Is the call to action potentially that they go and ask questions in the Slack channel or
Yeah, I think absolutely. So we've got a couple of resources up there, but I've just put up some of the working groups, and then I did add some of the training for the Linux Foundation. But I think the ask is for anyone that's jumping in and who wants to know more about specifically security, not just education, because we're going to be bringing out some more of that content. But if you want to understand more about really the real life of cybersecurity education, jumping into any one of those working groups will give you clear insight. So, and they're some of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. I meet
Oh, yeah.
strangers.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so our action can just, join one of the working groups in the next upcoming and just say hi. Usually we ask for new friends to introduce themselves and just let them know that it's first time there, you're just listening in, and not many will pick on you. So
yeah,
I have some
Yeah.
stupid questions.
go for it.
I like stupid questions.
So, oh, don't speak too soon. This is the first one of these meetings to ever happen. Yes.
First one.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that both simplifies and complicates the question I have at hand here, because the question is essentially, what is this? And the answer is ostensibly, we're still figuring it out, I assume, right?
Well, I can origin story this office hours for you a little bit.
Okay.
It's that across education and DEI efforts, which are pretty relatively more blended than some of the other SIGs.
Mhm.
There's so much external interest and engagement, stuff like the SPDX email you sent me yesterday. Lots of in-depth requests that can and should be centralized, because most of those aspects should be working with each other as well. So bringing
Okay.
them on call and using these as topic-oriented spaces. Today, it's for the mentorship program.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So
You'll forgive me. It's 9 a.m. here in California land, so still moving a little bit slowly.
Yeah, it's the first one, and I know one of the things we want to do is set up kind of like a schedule so folks can see which ones are coming up, or the next two might be this. We're still figuring out, but it just kind of giving a pathway for folks to also ask questions, and just come in either for what we're doing with DEI, or they might be within those groups that be like, hey, how do I just get started? I think just giving folks that space.
yeah, I think so. I have an idea. So moving forward with these, I think it would be great. It's also good for marketing of these kind of things. If we can send it out in advance and ask people if they have any topics that they would like to cover, which we can ignore if we have a major topic to cover, but it gives us a backlog of things that people are interested in. And I think it might be worth it, because this is it's such a valuable group for the kind of conversation we just had. I think it would be really good to time box those topic specific conversations to 30 minutes and ensure that we have 30 minutes in these open source sort of office hours for general discussion, for people to jump on, so it can really stay community. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, we can probably do the pre-recording, or just do the first 30 minutes, record that, right? And that's kind of like the marketing piece that we share. Record the conversation, of course, because there's going to be valuable information out of it. But like you said, time slot it. I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, cool.
I have one additional question. There's kind of this new trend within security where it's more privacy focused, and there's a real emphasis on privacy. What are some ways that you're kind of learning those technologies, or kind of looking at this space, or how do you even feel about the space in the first place?
So privacy's been around forever, just like security, but it takes something to make it into light. So it has been where security and privacy have worked together, but now they're kind of spanning off into different degrees. Like Governing Risk and Compliance, GRC, those groups and organizations kind of work with both, but they were also working with regulations. So if that's an area that you're looking to go into, for privacy, privacy security, I usually recommend looking at regulations and understanding a global wide of how different countries and organizations are handling these regulations, like GDPR Light in California, the executive order. Those type of roles go. There's multiple you can engineer and things of that nature, but they also tend to go more as an auditor or the folks that put the policies and procedures in place, and then validate that so that when auditors do come in, it's like a quicker turnaround. And then I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that, or if I fully answered your question.
I think that's it.
Oh, and just like something I think from like one of the meetings from yesterday, they were talking about specifically like policies and processes. Which one kind of takes more of like a priority, if you will? Yeah, sorry to put all these keywords at you guys.
Yeah, those are always interesting. It's like policies, standards, frameworks, procedures, processes. I still to this day get them a little confused, but a policy tends to be more of for me, from my understanding and my experience, tends to be more of like an external piece, right? This is what the company or the organization has to legally abide by. A process is kind of like the flow that we're going to do it. Oh, you're going to create this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And then the procedure, more of the person who's handling it or the folks involved, the users involved, the different steps. So, oh, you're going to enable this. Oh, you're going to send me an email. Oh, they all kind of get a little blurry, and everybody has their own little definition of it in the industry. But it is something you're going to hear more often as you grow into.
Does one typically take priority? Because I remember working for an institution before, and one of the things that they were trying to instill was we want like our policies to go basically like before our processes. But I have like a mixed like kind of weird sense where it was like the processes were then kind of more in charge of introducing policies, or unsure. It was very gray area.
It depends on your audience. Go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some semantic loops here that can break down because they're not consistent across both sectors and even individual companies. But I'm just I don't know if this is gonna answer your question, but I always think in SRE first. And basically we have SLAs, SLOs, and SLIs. Those are real things. So system level agreement, system level objective, and system level indicator. So SLA is something like if a server goes down for this amount of time, legally, the person doesn't have to pay anything anymore, right? An SLO is a quantitative number that keeps you below the SLA. And an SLI is that like sort of continuous indicator that's a running average underneath that. And so when you're looking at the difference between a process and a policy, it has to be, is it something that's able to be moved and rearranged? That's so is it like goalpost? That's a policy. If it's a process, it can be tied to KPIs or SLOs. I guess for me, I always have to very much make distinct it's operations if it doesn't have anything that can be quantitative to it. But there's a lot that we can have quantitative in cybersecurity and SRE that we just have indicators of what our next actions are. And that's why it really feels much different to develop in that space, because I'm not usually sweating on the keyboard until something has gone wrong. So.
Thank you. Is there any like good resources to read up on to kind of get more knowledge about like kind of the differences between like SLA, SLO, or just kind of the context behind those, or just adjacent?
You're getting Saul very excited.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, actually, I'll send you, so if you want some more context around that, I'll look into it a little bit more because I've been meaning to write this up. But that sort of context-driven approach, you can use that anywhere. I use that in my daily life. I use that for brushing my teeth. I love SLOs and SLIs. So it can be non-operational, but I'll send you some resources. I'll have to find them because I want to make sure that I get both separate SRE and cybersecurity. And that might also further demonstrate to you, here's a common framework between them and very, very different sort of approaches to them. Because basically it goes this way. In SRE, we want to have like a nice plushy like error budget. We want things to go wrong, and they just have to go wrong in a way that the end customer can't see. So like we're as lazy as possible. Whereas the same kind of indicator system in cybersecurity is completely different. They want to do as much preventative care as they can because one failure, every single customer will be aware of. So, right? Totally different jobs, totally different worlds.
Hey guys, I'm late as hell, and I apologize. I had an appointment this morning, and of course I couldn't move the appointment, and this one came up on the calendar. I didn't even know it was there until I looked this morning. So there that goes.
Just keeping you on your feet, Jay. That's it.
I know. It's all right. It's all right.
Well, I'm sorry. We're fresh out of donuts. So
I ate
I'll
them
have to
all.
wait until next time.
Yeah. As long as they're voodoo donuts, I don't need any other kind of donuts. Them voodoo donuts are hard. So hard.
No, you're making me miss Portland already.
Yeah, the Oreo cookie ones, the ones with the Oreo cookies on top and cream, those go hard.
Oh man.
No.
Oh man. You can get married there, right?
I didn't know that, but I'm not. That donut thing is once in the blue moon too. I don't normally eat donuts, but when I do.
Now I'm
Okay.
hungry.
Now I've successfully derailed the conversation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, at the beginning, we just talked a little bit about the Alpha Omega mentorship program coming out. And then we spent kind of the last half of it just talking about sort of like careers and how to look at getting started, particularly using like Linux Foundation as your jumping point. I thought it was a great first session. I was happy we put this together.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that stuff a lot, especially how you get started and how you get started in this. Of course, my views on that will probably be a little bit skewed, I guess.
Share the wealth.
Well, so I'm a traditionalist, right? I started doing information security before it was sexy, right? So you gotta understand, I came up in the game through understanding risk and risk management, and this was some 20 something years ago. Information security was conceptual at best at that point. But then educationally, and of course I got trained in the home of information security, which is the DoD. So I, and then of course academically, I mean, one of my degrees is information security systems. Like I have that. That's so it wasn't like I came into the game later on and found it and then found a one bright spot in it that I wanted to learn. No, I was exposed to everything, and I did everything. So I talk about the need to understand administrative, technical, and physical aspects of information security, and then drilling down deeper into what aspects of the information security you want to dive in on. And of course, cybersecurity being a subset of that, supply chain security, which is a newer concept, right? I mean, like like I said, my views are on it a little skewed because I think fundamentals are key. And now I'm one of those individuals that said there are too many people out here that know how to play instruments but don't know how to read sheet music. All right, so that's learn how to read the sheet music is also where I sit on that too. Like I said, just a bit skewed, but that's my 2-minute take on that.
It was actually a minute, so good job. Personal record right there.
Hey, Jay, I don't know if you've seen this email from me yet, but I sent it to you in what is now your morning. And I'm asking for a 5-minute audio recording where you talk about your entry into open source, but I have specific requests for the way that we go about it. So it's not boring and awful and professional. I want you to actually speak to people about what it feels like to be in this space. So look for that email, and I hope you're interested, because it's, I mean, I don't think you have a unique perspective, kind of, but there's so many people that are just like you in this space.
Oh, I saw the email and I laughed when I saw it. Don't worry. My anecdote about how I got into open source is funny as hell.
Yes, cool.
Yeah, it's funny as hell because it was by happenstance. This is not something I saw myself doing. This is by happenstance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said a 5-minute video. What format does that need to be in? Am I just recording this on am I recording this on my cell phone?
You need a TikTok dance.
Oh, we're not doing TikTok. We're not doing that.
It's sort of like
no.
it's kind of like the ice bucket challenge, but instead of water
The
and
milk
ice,
carts.
it's boiling hot coffee.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, that
Okay,
sounds
that's not bad.
about right. Get that.
Yeah. But it's just an audio recording, which I will then take and auto translate. So it's both readable and audio. But no video, it's just audio, because it's being a QR add-on to a zine, because we're cool these days. I promise the zine, once it's done, I'll be over it, but I will mention it 6 times a day till it's not. That's all I think about.
Yeah, you got it. I'll record that for you and send it on over. It's
Awesome.
just 5 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take. I mean, hell, I could take 10 minutes and do that, but 5 minutes is fine.
Yeah, go for it. You can even take 10, but we're aiming for 5.
Cool. Cool.
Well, we got 1 minute left. This has been really.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for joining. We'll release the next topic once I think we know what it is for next month.
That always helps.
Yeah.
These will be regular. They'll be at this time, right?
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And actually, I guess I'll just double check here. Did you get that other email from John Metric, Sal?
The SPDX space.
There's like the working group thing next Wednesday.
Ooh.
Steering committee thing.
Ooh, yes, I will double check it, but also send me a Slack message real quick so it stays inside of my head and past this phone call.
Yeah.
We can do it on a separate call though, because this ain't Alpha Omega. This is us trying to work with SPDX.
It's all goodness gracious. It's all playing. That's all this stuff is playing phone tag back and forth. Back and forth.
That's why we're trying to do centralized office hours. And that's a great
And
way
with that, tag you're it.
Oh, Jesus.
There you go.
All right, excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.